Get everyone on a call. That's still the first move made in just about any crisis these days, right? We need to get everybody together, we need to communicate. But the world around that call has changed. Incidents move faster. Legal and comms need to coordinate language before anything goes public. Technical teams, well, they need room to work without an audience. And then you've got executives and then partners. They need visibility, but certainly not see everything. So the crisis call is no longer just a place to talk. It's where the organization separates what's known from what's assumed, decides who needs to act, and controls what can be shared. And that's not a meeting. That's a crisis infrastructure. And ordinary meeting tools were never built for that job. I'm Robb Boyd, and this is the second episode in our series on sovereign video infrastructure with VQ Communications. In episode 1, we looked at the control plane paradox, the idea that a communications system is only truly sovereign if the organization controls not just the meeting, but the management layer underneath. Once that sovereign infrastructure is in place, how do you actually run the call that you cannot afford to lose? Well, the platform built for that moment is VQ Conference Manager's Advanced Conferencing Center, ACC. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why it exists. Most people think of a crisis call as a meeting with higher stakes. Mature organizations, the ones with real incident response disciplines, they call it something else entirely. An incident bridge, a war room, a command and coordination environment. FEMA, CISA, and NIST all treat incident response as structured coordination, not improvisation. The language varies: incident command, response teams, escalation paths, communication plans. But the pattern is consistent. A crisis call is not one call, it's a structured coordination environment. One person owns the process, not because they know everything, they almost certainly don't, but because someone has to be the incident commander. Someone has to own the timeline, separate facts from assumptions, assign actions, log decisions, and control what information goes where and when. The incident commander has to be able to focus on the response, not on managing the logistics of the call. Legal and comms, they're avoiding leaks. Technical teams are investigating, not performing for an audience. Executives and partners get visibility, but only up to a line that someone has to hold. Different groups, different needs, and one person has to hold all of it together. Think of a crisis as less of a conversation and more of a temporary operating system, one that organizations build in real time while the situation is unfolding to get from confusion to coordination. That's the operating system this platform has to run, not just connect people, but support the structure underneath. And that means that the real question isn't whether the call connects, it's whether that structured coordination environment can be pre-built, launched, classified, split, merged, and recovered while the people inside it stay focused on the incident. But having one of those environments ready to go, that's another matter entirely. COVID rewired how the world felt about a complex call. Every organization, no matter how sovereign their infrastructure, got pushed onto commercial SaaS tools, your Zoom, your Teams, your WebEx. 2 years of one-click launches, automatic dial-outs, and instant breakout rooms. Now, nothing wrong with these platforms. They just weren't built for crisis coordination. And all that repetition didn't stay in the cloud. It migrated with the people who then joined defense agencies, central banks, hospitals, and grid operators, all carrying habits shaped by everyday meetings into rooms meant for something far more serious. The habit that made it into the room was built for a different room. That's muscle memory, the reflex that outlives the reason. A 2026 Cigna survey of more than 600 senior cybersecurity decision makers found that even though formal incident response plans are nearly universal, 73% said that their organizations would not be fully ready to execute under pressure. And 90% pointed to difficulty coordinating key stakeholders during an attack. That's not a detection problem, that's a coordination problem. The exact gap muscle memory papers over until the moment it can't. And when complexity exceeds what's available, someone says, let's jump on a Zoom. And 20 minutes into an active incident, the conversation is moved to a commercial cloud platform, not because the sovereign infrastructure failed, but because the operational layer it needed wasn't there. The instinct to trust a familiar tool is understandable. What makes it dangerous is the timing. The events that trigger the need for a crisis call, a cyber attack, a power grid failure, a major infrastructure event, these are exactly the scenarios where you can't assume that a cloud-dependent platform is going to be there, authorized or reachable. The July 2024 CrowdStrike outage hit banks, hospitals, airlines, and airports simultaneously. The lesson wasn't that every cloud service failed. The lesson was that ordinary digital dependency can become part of the incident itself. A platform that needs the public internet to function isn't crisis infrastructure. It's a tool that works in normal conditions. And normal conditions are the one thing a crisis can guarantee you don't have. When people feel forced onto an unsecured platform mid-crisis, they don't speak freely. They hedge, they hold back the detail that would actually help. That's the same pattern as jumping to Zoom, one step further down the road. The secure channel wasn't broken, it was too slow, too awkward, or too hard to use, so people routed around it. The platform isn't just a logistics tool, it's a condition under which people are willing to say what needs to be said. For organizations in fully air-gapped environments, none of this is theoretical. There is no commercial platform to fall back on. The secure infrastructure isn't the preferred option, it's the only option. And if the operational layer to run a complex call isn't there, the muscle memory problem doesn't produce a workaround, it produces a failed response. This is exactly the problem VQ Conference Manager's Advanced Conferencing Center, or ACC for short, was built to solve.
Get everyone on a call. That's the instinct. But the most important step happens earlier than that, before the incident, before anyone's dialed in at all. You see, everything ACC does starts before the incident. The middle of a crisis is the worst possible time to make decisions about communications structure, who needs to be on the call, at what classification level, whether external participants can be on the same bridge as internal leadership, which platform is even authorized. Organizations that answer those questions while the situation is already unfolding, they aren't responding, they're catching up. ACC moves those decisions to the only time they make sense before anyone needs them. But planning can only take you so far. Some of what a crisis needs you can see coming. Some of it you can't. And there has to be room for both. 5 jobs. That's everything this platform has to do. Job 1, plan. Pre-stage the response before anyone needs it. Picture a cyber incident in progress. The operator doesn't open a blank meeting and start dialing from a list. They open ACC, find incident response under cybersecurity and select it. A confirmation pops up, the full roster ready to dial, and they just click start. Everything was already pre-decided, pre-incident, by people who weren't under pressure when they made those decisions. Now the second job is connect. Now finally you get to say it. Get everyone on a call. The system dials every participant on the list automatically. The operator screen populates in real time, who's in, who's missing, when each one connected, everything logged the instant it happens. No spreadsheet, no manual dialing, no guesswork while the clock runs. Now look at this, because I don't want you to miss it. Every participant carries 2 things from the moment they join, a classification and 1 or more labels. Classifications are fixed, right? 1 level per person. TS, or top secret in this case. Labels, well, they're different. They're flexible. An operator can assign as many as the incident needs. Each label can carry its own color set by the operator for their own operational needs. So on a roster like this, color barely matters. On a roster of 60 or more, it's the difference between scanning every name and seeing the groupings at a glance. The third job, split. Planning gets you as far as anyone can see ahead, but a crisis never moves in a straight line, and the moment it branches, someone has to divide and conquer on the spot, not on a whiteboard. A few minutes into the incident, some of what needs to happen next isn't an entire whole room conversation. People with a shared piece of the work need room to handle it together, away from everyone else. The operator opens a new session. With labels like these, spotting who belongs together takes a glance, not a scroll. We'll check off the 3 people who need it, name the session, create it. 3 people out of the main bridge, now into their own room in seconds. Now you can create as many of these as you need. Just hit the plus button up here and make your selections just like before. Every session is easy to track from the main screen, each with its own clock, each still fully in the operator's control. And then job 4 is merge. Undo as much of that work and that subdivision as you need. When a session's work is done, the operator merges it back. One click returns its participants to where they started, or you can return everyone with a single merge all. ACC doesn't ask the operator to remember who came from where. The system already knows. The confirmation message says it plainly. Participants are being moved back to the origin meeting. The operator built the structure on the fly. ACC keeps track of it so nobody has to. So far, that's 4 jobs and still just 1 incident. These breakout sessions work great for on-the-fly tactical responses, but there will often be a need to fire up other parts of your response plan using additional or different scenarios, and that's the 5th job, Orchestrate. Orchestrate means the operator is no longer managing one call, they're managing multiple response structures at once, each with its own roster, purpose, and state. Following our example here, the cyber incident has spawned a physical security response. So the operator starts a second scenario, terror response. It's not a session inside incident response. It's a fully independent conference, its own roster running side by side with the first. 12 people in incident response, 2 people in terror response. 2 separate response structures, 2 separate clocks on the same screen, response tracks running in parallel. And merge still works here too. The operator selects both and clicks merge. ACC asks one question: which meeting should receive the merged participants? In this case, incident response. Terror response is 2 participants move in, head count goes from 12 to 14, terror response drops to 0, but it isn't gone, it's just empty for now. Crisis situations ebb and flow. Coordination has to stay just as fluid. ACC has been tracking where everyone came from the whole time, so when it's time to send terror responses people back, the operator hits split, and everyone's restored to exactly where they were pre-merge. 5 jobs, 1 screen. Do all of that by hand, track every classification, watch the roster split and merge as the incident itself keeps moving, and the logistics alone are going to bury you. Ordinary meeting tools can't touch it. Neither can ordinary SaaS. That's exactly why ACC is built on one idea: reduced cognitive load. Because what this architecture is actually doing is separating 2 roles that in ordinary meetings get collapsed into one: the meeting leader and the host. In a low-stakes meeting, those are the same person. That works fine. But we already met this problem earlier. The incident commander can't also be managing the communications environment. ACC just makes that split real. The incident commander is the meeting leader, facts, decisions, next actions. The operator is the host running the environment underneath them. I know what that job looks like without a platform behind it. Early in my career, I was a conferencing specialist. I had the headset spreadsheet, manually making sure nothing went wrong before it went wrong. Human operator, manual everything. I hope that's not still how your organization handles crisis. Because without someone in that seat, you don't just have one. You have a crisis waiting inside your crisis.
None of what you just watched, 5 jobs, 1 screen, is something that you bolt onto somebody else's cloud platform. It only works because of what it's built on. For most organizations, meeting security is a checklist. Passcode, waiting room, authenticated access. Those controls matter, but in a sovereign environment, they're the entry point, not the boundary. The real question is architectural. Who controls the infrastructure underneath the meeting? And what happens when the public cloud isn't reachable? Not because something failed, but because it was never supposed to be in the path. Well, that question has stopped being theoretical. Gartner's 2026 CIO survey found more than half of government CIOs outside the US now expect digital sovereignty concerns to reshape how they work with technology providers. That's a buying criterion that most platforms can't meet. In many environments, routing sensitive communications through infrastructure you don't control isn't a preference, it's a regulatory, legal, or treaty violation. VQ operates in that world. On-premises, private cloud, fully air-gapped if needed, it runs on Cisco Meeting Server, the same foundation already trusted in government, defense, and critical infrastructure environments. VQ didn't reinvent secure conferencing, it built the management layer that foundation never had. Every job you just watched runs on infrastructure your organization owns outright. That's not an integration, it's the entire point. And that's exactly where this market's current obsession with AI transcription, AI automatic recording, and AI cloud-based summaries, these all become a liability instead of a feature. An incident response call may include unconfirmed information legal privilege, or active vulnerabilities, decisions that aren't ready to be documented anywhere, let alone in a searchable artifact sitting on somebody else's infrastructure. For sovereign, high-assurance crisis communications, the bridge cannot depend on infrastructure that the organization doesn't control. Everything up to now has centered on cyber incidents. But remember, cyber is just one kind of crisis. And as we've seen, crisis response is a coordination problem. In fact, let's look at a very public example of that kind of event. Now, this one predates ACC entirely, but it's a great illustration of exactly the kind of incident that this platform was built for. Take Heathrow, the evening of March 20th, 2025. A fire at an electrical substation outside the airport's perimeter forced firefighters to isolate the site. Now, Heathrow draws power from 3 substations for resilience, each with backup capacity, but with one site down, safely restarting everything that depended on it took nearly 18 hours. More than 1,300 flights were canceled, roughly 200,000 passengers disrupted, the airport's first full shutdown in 15 years. Now, we don't know what Heathrow's team actually used to coordinate that day, and ACC wasn't part of it, but picture a moment like it, and the shape of the problem is unmistakable. Operations, emergency services, and government liaisons all needing to coordinate at once under enormous public pressure, while critical infrastructure with backup capacity on paper is still being carefully brought back online. That's exactly the kind of moment a platform like ACC is built for. Pre-staged access, on-the-fly splits and merges, back the moment things stabilize. Not because the incident is cyber, but because the coordination problem is identical. Get everyone on a call. That's where we started. But connecting people isn't the entire job, not in a crisis. The real job is getting an organization from confusion to coordination without the response itself becoming a second crisis. If the meeting is chaotic, the response is chaotic. If the platform depends on infrastructure that the crisis itself might take down, well, the response plan has a hidden failure point. And if people aren't confident that the line is secure, they're not going to say what needs to be said. Get that right, and the meeting stops being something that the response has to fight through. It becomes part of how the response actually works. ACC is what the crisis call looks like when the infrastructure is built for command, not just conversation. It has to help run the response, not just connect people to it. Now, if any of this sounds like the gap in your own crisis plan, reach out to VQ. It doesn't have to start with a demo, it can just be a conversation about how this fits into managing your next crisis. Check it out. I'm Robb Boyd. Links to learn more are below. If you haven't seen episode 1 of the Control Plane Paradox, I highly recommend it. It's there too.